Hi, I'm Jake, and today I'm going to be doing an in-depth review on the brand new full-color terrain set made by Frontline Gaming. If you're new to the channel, what I do here is primarily cover competitive 40K content, and I also host fun and informative battle reports at various competitive levels. Today's video review is a brand new segment on the channel where I'll be helping you make the most informed decisions before spending your hard-earned dollars on new hobby products. If this kind of content interests you, you can stay up to date by staying subscribed, which greatly helps the production of more content. When I first saw this new item pop up on their website, it immediately caught my eye from various aspects such as the aesthetics, the pricing, but most importantly, the fact that it doesn't need to be painted. Raise your hand if you have more unpainted models or terrain pieces. Models is another story. Raise your hand if you have more unpainted terrain pieces than you do have painted. Joking aside, I'm sure there's plenty of hobbyists out there who enjoy the process of painting their own gorgeous terrain sets, like myself. But if you're anything like me as well, where you are in fact capable of doing it, but simply don't want to spend days on end doing so, then you could probably relate to how exciting something like this really is. For those of you who don't know who Frontline Gaming is, they not only run the International Tournament Circuit, aka the ITC, and run incredible tabletop events, but are also well known for manufacturing affordable, high-quality battle mats and terrain sets just like you're seeing here today. FLG was most gracious in providing this set for me to review today, and since this is my first video review I'm producing on the channel, I will say that these reviews will always be an honest and truthful personal opinion of mine, whether a company provides the product for free or not. Oh, and I will never review a product where a company offers money to do so because that just ain't right. So what does ITC terrain mean exactly? Since Frontline Gaming essentially sets the tone for how many Warhammer event tournaments function, ITC terrain is best explained as being optimized for competitive play specifically. So this type of product might appeal to you if you currently frequent ITC events or plan to do so in the future so you can get some accurate board setup practice at home. Of course, that's not the only reason to pick up a set, since filling a board full of whatever terrain appeals to you personally the most is something you essentially need in order to play your game correctly. Alright, so for the terrain review metric, I'll be using a 5-point scale across 4 separate categories, which will determine the final overall buy rating. Starting first with functionality, then visual appeal, quality, and finally the pricing value of the product. Since 40K match play rules as a gaming system require some physical characteristics on terrain in order to play the game properly, as well as to help avoid in-game player conflicts, functionality is probably one of the most important categories. What I really like about FLG terrain pieces is their ruins specifically, and how they come on a base, which greatly helps identify what constitutes as being on or within said terrain piece. This terrain set comes with 5 room pieces in total, one of which is massive, which probably acts as a centerpiece, or alternatively, you don't have to actually glue the 2 pieces together, which would result in 2 larger half pieces. Additionally, you get 2 containers and 4 Gothic ruin walls, which I suppose you could use as barricades if you wanted to. I really do like the Gothic ruin set as a whole, and it's typically one of the most fair and balanced tables to play on at events, where both sides of the board have the varying sizes of ruin structures. I'm not entirely certain of what the ruin wall's intended functionality is, but I am familiar enough with FLG ran events that I've seen them being placed on some flat terrain pieces to indicate its obscuring characteristic. Functionality rating, 4 out of 5. There's so little to fault here, since the Gothic set itself has been tried and tested over time, and all the pieces make complete sense to me, except the ruin walls, but that's just my own personal thought on them. Next up is the visual appeal. Man, does this thing look really cool. The design and color combinations they chose really catches the eye, but isn't overbearing on the tabletop, which is quite important to me. I've always felt that any terrain on a tabletop should complement both the game and the player's models and not overpower it or even detract from some awesome paint jobs that people are really proud of. I really love the bolder move on doing the stained glass window design, as it really breaks up the typically monotone coloring of the traditional Gothic ruin scheme. Not to mention the green tint adds actually a lot of character, giving it a more grimy, grimdark feel while still having a nice color pop. I'm not entirely sure what production process they used on these to manufacture these, but I actually really like the fact that it's not hand painted. Doing so would certainly hike up the price to the consumer and would more than likely be a far less detailed, generic, probably an airbrush paint job, which is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying it wouldn't be nearly as cool in my opinion. My best guess is some kind of vinyl sheet printing process is being used here, which is then bonded onto the MDF wood material. As awesome as the print graphic and design is, if you start looking up close, you do notice some inconsistencies in the patterns, which either come from the original graphic source, maybe being blurry, or quite possibly the transfer process from digital to print. Yeah, it's probably the latter. But this is far from an issue, but as I mentioned before, I will always be conducting in-depth reviews. I bring this point up because as great as the pictures look online, if you have a keen eye, some of the grainy textures might throw you off a bit. But from what I can see, it's from the terrain print itself. I'm not saying that this is at all a negative, but I'm sure I'm not alone in wondering what they will actually look like in person. The good news is, once you see it in person and on the tabletop, it looks just as incredible, if not more, than the pictures do. You don't notice any of the grainy graphics at all from the 3 to 6 foot tabletop distance, so that's why I think the print looks fantastic for its intended use. Visual appeal rating, 5 out of 5. I have nothing to fault here in this category. Quality-wise, you won't see me doing any drop tests or anything like that, but durability is definitely a factor when it comes to terrain. Can it stand up to packing and storing? Can it be moved around where pieces don't break easily? Those are two very important questions, and yes, this set is not only well built, but the surface areas don't seem to scratch easily, considering the design is printed and somehow adhered onto the wood, and there's no indication of peeling ever occurring. As with any MDF terrain set though, my only concern is how some of the joints and connection points could potentially snap or become unglued when comparing to, say, a plastic Games Workshop terrain kit. So with that in mind, quality rating here is 4 out of 5, with only 1 point being lost for the simple fact that it is constructed with MDF by nature. For the final review metric, and arguably one of the most important ones, because as most of us know, this hobby ain't cheap. Not that you could get a comparable physical size from GW easily, especially the large centerpiece, but let's assume on average each ruin itself would be valued at $60 each from GW. And at 5 ruins, you're already at $300, not including the containers and the ruin walls. The set coming in at an MSRP of $265 US is incredibly fair as is, notably comparing the value to their traditional Gothic ruin set, which comes in unpainted for $249. I don't really see any reason to not get the full color version unless of course you have a very specific paint scheme in mind. But yes, there's definitely only a $16 MSRP difference between the two sets, which just adds tremendous value to this new terrain release. If you happen to be watching this video in the month of November in the year of 2021 though, you'll actually be able to pick up the full color terrain set for a whopping 25% off, bringing the pricing down to under $200. The set is also available as a bundle, which includes the FLG Ruined City Mat, if you so choose, but there's actually quite a few combinations that would look great with this terrain set, so that one would be entirely up to you. With that in mind, at $198, this set is an absolute steal. At $265, I rate it as a good deal. Come to think of it, I'm actually even more impressed by the pricing considering how much the cost of lumber has gone up this year. I'll have to put the value score at 5 out of 5 hands down. Great job FLG for staying true to your affordable, durable, and practical description of your terrain sets. The total final score for the Frontline Gaming full color Gothic Ruins terrain set comes to an average of 4.5. 5, which definitely earns the Black Rabbit buy rating. I do hope you all enjoyed this format, and if you think I may have missed any metric that's important to include in the future, I'd appreciate it if you left a comment to let me know what that might be. Since day one, which actually wasn't that long ago because the channel's still pretty new, I've strived to keep improving the content between each and every single video. Well, that's it for today, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in, and if you found this video to be helpful or informative by any measure, and would like to see more content like this, please stay subscribed, share this video with a friend, and join in on the conversation below. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.